Welcome to Salve, a therapeutic podcast for digital ailments. We're here to ease your online aches and entrepreneurial anxieties, one session at a time. With our host, Jordan Brannon, and today's guest, Reuben Mattinson from RJM Tax Exemption. Today's worrying condition, the agony of growing pains.
Hello, everyone. I am Jordan Brannon, co-founder of Coalition Technologies and the host of the Salve podcast, where we aim to treat and cure some of your digital aches and pains. Today, we are going to be talking to Reuben about his experience dealing with the pain that comes from rapid growth. Reuben, I'd love to have you introduce yourself and maybe give us a quick bit of background on your business as it is today. And we'll jump from there into talking about that rapid growth and all of the aches and pains that come with that.
Jordan, pleasure to be here. Yeah, so my name's Reuben James Mattinson, which is what my main company got named after, very humbly, RJM Tax Exemption. So we founded the company 2019, and we are sales tax specialists who help e-commerce businesses specifically in that niche. My kind of backstory isn't very typical. I actually trained as a physical therapist as my first degree, moved on to be a high school science teacher and examiner after that, and then made the natural progression into tax consultancy business. But yeah, since 2019, we've helped over 5,000 clients worldwide. We are in the number one spot on Trustpilot for consultancy in the US space and company registry. So we've got a bit of experience behind us. But great to be here and looking forward to having a good chat.
Awesome. I'm really excited to talk to you because you do have a unique experience. The backstory, I want to dig in. I want to get the origin story here. But you do have a really unique experience, which we've seen a number of brands that we've worked with go through, which is this really rapid growth. Maybe before we jump into how you ended up doing tax consultancy work, what exactly was that sort of growth pace like? Give us some numbers and some things to help quantify for the audience exactly what we're talking about when we say rapid growth.
Yeah, well, I started the business really as a sole trader initially early 2019, just doing kind of bits and bobs. The company formed a little bit later, August 2019. So from the formation in August, within the first 12 months, it went from just me in my bedroom, lonely, to 20 full-time staff members. And we were doing multi-million-dollar gross in sales. So pretty steep curve, yeah.
Did you get everybody into the bedroom? Or were they working out of the living room?
We tried, but then health and safety said we couldn't do it. So yeah, unfortunately, I had to pay for an office.
Yep, I know that. Joel and I, when we first started Coalition, we had a small Venice apartment. And there was rollaway beds, and we had IKEA desks, which we would shove to the wall and then stack so we had some living space. And then when people would come back in the next day, we'd actually pull everything back out again, set up the computers. It was just kind of a nightmare. We did that for a couple of years as we actually ended up absorbing a couple of apartments to allow us to have workspace. But so that is a really, really fast growth experience. And most of us who are going through this entrepreneurial journey, we have a little bit of pacing to kind of figure things out, which is often really great, right? We get a little bit of like, I can struggle with this one problem and then deal with this other problem and deal with this other problem. But when you're going from 0 to 20 employees, multi-million dollars, you just don't have that opportunity. What particular pain points really jump out to you as an entrepreneur, things that kept you up at night, probably contributed to your first couple of ulcers? What were some of those things?
Yeah, the ulcers did come for sure. I would say like initially it's about getting the right people around you as quickly as possible, because you know that's what props up a business. And I think it's not about just getting really good people who are great at their job. You've got to get trustworthy people and people who you think are going to stay in the company, not going to kind of, I guess, maybe backstab you in any way, but at the same time just be loyal and consistent. So for me, that was a pain point. But fortunately, I was quite, I guess, decent at networking before I started the business. So I had a decent network. I had quite a large group of friends and friends of friends, if it makes sense. So it's amazing how far that goes in these situations, because when you can get solid references from people you trust, that helps a lot. But I guess what's keeping me up at night initially is probably the work itself, because I mean, at that stage you're doing 100-hour weeks plus to try and build the infrastructure. So the initial pain points is very much trying to build out an automated system as quickly and as best as possible, because you are realizing very rapidly you can't sustain this on your own, and then you get a few extra staff and then they can't sustain it, and you've got to then get the right training resources in place where it can be as automated as possible, so people are using tech. So it's leveraging tech, leveraging as much of that as you can. This is obviously pre the artificial intelligence run that we're having. So yeah, just trying to get as much streamlining in place, I think was a big thing.
Okay, so it's kind of two things I think to unpack there. One is that employment, hiring, HR side of things. So you started as a solopreneur. August is sort of the date when the business gets to be official. When did you add employee number one, and who was it? And don't say it was your girlfriend, because that's usually how it goes.
No, it was very much to start with. Yeah, not far off. So the first employee was simultaneously as the business formed, because I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to take on employees. I want it to have a decent structure for these people to be coming on board to. So my first employee was close. It was my wife's brother.
Okay.
Yeah, so not
same
not
as
a
a
mile off.
girlfriend.
Yeah. And then actually the second was his girlfriend. So that was when there was just a lot of admin to be done. I was obviously doing the brunt of the main work, but they were helping a lot with just administration and all that kind of it sounds
Are they
harsh,
still
but grunt
together?
work. Do you know what? They are. They're
Okay.
married. They've just had a kid.
Congratulations to them.
And you know what? The lady in question still works for me.
Okay, all right.
6+ years on. So clearly, I've looked after her to some extent, which again is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good story. A lot of the times when I'm talking to founders, it is usually their girlfriend or their significant other.
Yeah.
And usually that 100-hour work week, high stress, is not necessarily going to pay off for a relationship. So good for them. We'll have to send them a gift from the show or something like that for being a part of the success story. So you were able to bring in some people close. Balancing the sales piece, the marketing piece, the admin piece, and you're actually building some software to go along with that. What did you prioritize? Like, where did you put most of your time? What were the things that you viewed as, sacred objects, if you will, that really you had to give all your attention to?
Yeah, so initially it was very much trying to network with the appropriate businesses, because we saw that very initial brilliant success from B2B partnerships who had the clientele who needed our services. And obviously that's far more valuable than just the odd people coming in organically. So I thought, well, here we go. This is definitely the most bang for your buck, as they say in the UK. We just really channeled in on those partnerships initially with a few conferences and a few kind of conversations with the right people at the right time. The software, as you touched on, big decisions like that where it's going to affect the company in a big way, I had to really give a lot of attention to and make sure it was running smoothly. So it's kind of project managing the important parts along with networking was my main part. Yeah.
That seems pretty typical for founders, CEOs, that relationship building piece is really critical. Joel, again, my brother, co-founder, he was pretty involved in maintaining some and building some connections in Los Angeles, which was sort of home base for us. And I came in a little more cold and picked up more of the operations side of things. But certainly those early relationships are really vital for getting us off the ground. Maybe talking to a founder out there who is in a similar spot and is thinking about, hey, I'm trying to find that healthy flow of deals. what were some resources that you looked to, some good places that, maybe offered some insight, and you kind of pulled a couple of playbook pages from them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like I was kind of having to make it up as I went along. It
Okay.
felt like a very niche space, what we were trying to do, because there's a lot of companies that do sales tax work, obviously, or tax work, but we were trying to be very niche in the e-commerce space for businesses who sell to every state across America, which a
Okay.
lot of companies weren't catering for. And we were trying to find a niche where we weren't charging ridiculous amounts of money.
Hmm.
So, the clientele we were looking for, I think, again, was very quite specific. So what I did was really just constantly research which businesses can connect and plug into ours, which businesses can I add value to a point in which it's a no-brainer for them, because if they plug into our company, we're going to save their clients money and time, and
Hmm.
the money they're going to save is going to far outweigh the cost of our services because of our quite competitive rates, really. So
Okay.
for me, I feel like I was kind of creating the playbook as I went along. Besides the more typical things of going on podcasts as we're doing here, which is great opportunities, and going to conferences dotted around the world. Yeah, I felt like I was kind of having to freestyle a little bit, Jordan, to be honest. Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a one of my favorite quotes about being an entrepreneur is that you've got to learn to be a good scavenger.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's just sort of a mindset where you're trying to figure out where to get that next meal, and you live there as long as you can, and then you're going to keep going. And that hunger and opportunistic mindset really is what drives a lot of that early growth. So you kind of jumped in and focused on relationships and keyed in on businesses that could connect you to other businesses. And that really helped fuel that early success. And then you guys hit COVID. How did COVID impact you positively and negatively from a business standpoint?
So positively, huge fuel on the fire as far as people wanting to build online businesses, wanting to sell online, wanting to find ways to make money from home. Obviously, we're all stuck there. Find ways to entertain themselves. So there was a huge insurgence of just people wanting to learn and wanting to learn
Hmm.
how to sell products, how to do e-commerce businesses. So really, um, I think that was a big part of the rapid growth that followed from 2021, 2022,
Yeah.
so on. So yeah, huge positive side of it. The negative side, I think, comes more of just looking after your staff and looking after yourself, because it's a very isolating time for everybody.
Hmm.
I mean, it's isolating anyway when you work from home and work remotely, which you often do in these types of businesses, but when you haven't had a chance to meet together as a staff for a very long period of time,
Yeah.
I think it's just having to try and check in on everyone, and like morale boosts and initiatives within the company to make people feel looked after and heard, having regular video chats like this, anything we can do. I think that was the negative side we were having to keep quite a close eye on. But business wise, I can't really pick much of a negative, because for us it was an ideal time for our business.
Okay. So it worked out well. You were able to cover those things. Now you're UK based, is that correct?
Yeah, so we're UK based. We're all our main staff body are based in house in the UK for the majority. We have a few US based accountants for the
Okay.
federal kind of tax side, but yeah, we're a UK business.
Okay. And how was that in terms of navigating some of the specific COVID restrictions? We on the e-commerce side here in the United States, it was come March and April. If you were in the wrong state or the wrong city, all of a sudden you can't run a retail store. You can't. You don't have a receiving location. You can't run a warehouse. You can't ship. It was just shut down for a couple of weeks. And so that was traumatic for us because we've got clients who are calling me like, I can't do anything. We're basically out of business until somebody says we're back in business. And then we had other clients who are in, more, I'll use the term liberal, but liberal in terms of their response to COVID, that were like, yeah, you can stay open, do whatever you want. And they really seemed to accelerate growth. Was that impact different for you over there? And was that hard to sort of navigate the US and UK and all of those other sort of climates?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was pretty strict over here in the UK as well, and I think the vaccination kind of issue or topic, as it were, was quite difficult to navigate because we're having to travel to conferences and to speak to people and keep partnerships healthy. So that was really difficult. But yeah, it was an interesting time as far as a lot of clients got hit, you're right, physical stores, but then a lot of clients, even within the UK, were coming to us saying, well, there's great opportunity now to not only to help people, but to make money, obviously, as businesses do. And there was a lot of consulting on the generic sales, as you can imagine, of masks and hand gel and branding and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really interesting and I think one in a lifetime, arguably, kind of experience to see again this insane, rapid kind of sales that people were getting off these types of products, and the ridiculous supply and demand situation going on. So that was just, yeah, bizarre. Looking back, it doesn't even feel, it just feels like a weird dream because it's just not the norm. But that was fun to navigate and to get to see those success stories and how people were kind of working in that time.
So hopefully COVID was a once in a lifetime event. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because, I mean, on the flip side, if you're going to have some sort of global pandemic, I'll take that over the Spanish flu any day. And especially if you're in e-commerce, it worked out pretty well. So as you've grown now, you're 5+ years in. You've had some additional opportunities to grow and mature, but you've probably also experienced some different pain points as you've been progressing. What are some of those ones that you feel like were symptomatic of that rapid early growth? Maybe give us just 2 or 3 of them and we can kind of briefly touch on them. We are going to look at doing a second follow-up to this where we can dive into some specific ones, but maybe 2 or 3 that you really feel like they were really a byproduct of that rapid growth that happened for you.
Yeah, I think it's weird when you have that kind of level of success, which I'd never had in my life. I think it does a bit of a number on you as a person. I think is a big thing to address. I think a lot of people don't really talk about it much, but how you deal with that and not let it affect you and your priorities and your contentment in life and your peace and how you live and the people around you, I think was the biggest byproduct for me as a CEO, like having to think, well, actually, I'm just wanting to spend some time with my wife and my loved ones, but my brain is off thinking of the next business idea or whatever I'm going to do because all these hundreds of clients who are coming in. So for me, that was huge, having to, and I think it's an ongoing battle as a CEO, and it always will be, but having to really fight hard and put things in place to try and carve out that space where you can really switch off and prioritize things and just appreciate the small things, because I think comparison is the thief of joy, but I think success and money can be the thief of joy as well. And having to get back to planet Earth, thankfully I've got good friends and family around me that help you do that. But that was big for one. Yeah.
Yeah. That one is actually one I think you often see come up in entrepreneurial podcasts, is that there is a little bit of poisoning that can happen that you don't necessarily see when you're running a very successful company. And it's sort of, it's seeping out of you into what was life while you're going through this journey. Because if you dive in and you're a year in at 100 hours, you've cut out a lot of people, you've cut out a lot of conversations, you missed a lot of events. And in some ways, you have this sort of obsession and unhealthy relationship with the company that nobody else really understands. And so it does create some space for you. I know Joel and I, we often compared Coalition as to a baby. Like you have a child all of a sudden, and people don't get that. They seem to sort of view it as this company, as like this thing, but to you, it's deeply personal. It's very intimate. Its growth or lack of growth suddenly feels like it's a reflection on you as a parent. Did you go through any of that just as you were growing the business?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I don't think anyone understood what was happening. I think my wife was very gracious and very understanding, considering, and we didn't actually have kids at the time. We have a 3-month-old now.
Okay.
And I think we wouldn't have had him unless we'd worked through what we're talking through now. But she was, very gracious with me. And I think it's just a very strange phenomenon, really, because you're obviously working and you're working. to make money, and in your head you're like, well, it's for freedom and it's to use it for good things and whatever. But it gets to a point where you're like, well, if I'm working for this freedom, where is the freedom? Because I don't
Mm-hmm.
see it at the moment. So am I just going to keep working for this, but like,
Mm-hmm.
freedom per se, and never actually get that? So you have to force yourself to think, well, I want my business to be serving me, not me to be a servant to my business for the rest of my life. And I think that is a very big kind of switch you've got to turn in your head, as you've just said, because it's this precious baby and child that you've almost got to learn to let go of to some extent. Probably how adults feel when their kid turns 18 and go off to college.
Yep.
It is a little bit like that, isn't it? Well, he's grown up now, and he's a
The first
he's a
boyfriend
big
or girlfriend,
driving
driver's
exactly.
license, all of those things. Where
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
I'm not sure where I'm
yeah,
ready for this.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's like that for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and you were married actually at the start of the business, and you guys survived that. So congratulations as well. Lots of
Thank you.
lots of
Thank
good
you. Yeah.
romance happening there. All right. So
Yeah.
getting through that was a challenge. And do you feel like you're in a spot where you have like a healthier grasp on that today than you did before?
Yeah, I think very much so. And again, I think it ultimately came down to making sure each of us felt heard, because as you've just touched on, as a CEO, you feel like you're never really fully heard or understood because people
Mm-hmm.
aren't in your position. So it's very easy to be like, you don't get me, you don't get where I'm coming from. But then equally, you've got a wife who you don't understand her position or where she's coming from. You've got a husband who's barely ever there and he's working all the time and all this. So it's about really pumping the brakes on this back and forward and really trying to get yourself into that person's shoes. And I'm quite happy to say that we did marriage counseling, and I talk about that a lot because I think it's a bit of a topic again people don't want to touch on or they're afraid to mention it, but it did the world of good for us, the absolute world
Mm-hmm.
of good. And again, yeah, just making sure you're giving space for each of it to be heard and understood and valued is a big thing. We did chuck a crazy property development into the midst as well of doing it,
Okay.
of course. A
Yeah.
giant like 9-bed house with like an indoor pool and cinema and everything. Why not also do that alongside this business? So that really pushed us to the point of where, wait a minute, we're gonna have to really work on this. And yeah, it's a weird one. It's like, it's not necessarily the work you're doing, but it's how you work that
Mm.
is the important thing. It's the way you work, not the work itself. And there's always a smarter way and a more emotionally intelligent way to work and to live. And I think, yeah, finding that sweet spot is really important to kind of
Um,
move forward in a healthier way.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think early on, um, as the business, because our business grew incrementally, and as we were growing and it started to consume more and more and more, it was this you had this dopamine play happening where you're working so hard, and so you have these low lows, and then you have those payoffs that keep happening. Was we had 16 years, we have 16 years of straight growth now, but it's one of those things where you're just sort of almost being addicted to that. And
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I early on, I didn't know how to communicate any of those things to my wife or family or friends, and so it was really like I was self-inflicting this isolation. All I was sharing at home was frustrations, and the wins. You didn't see them as much because you're just your head down, and stuff is just moving so fast. You don't get a pause and really appreciate the wins, and you're just sort of communicating to somebody like, "Hey, this is all rough," and then you have to kind of step back and like, "What am I?" No wonder my wife has a very negative perception of the business 3 or 4 years in.
Yeah.
To her,
Yeah.
it's just been this soul suck, and like, it's doing well. It's affording good opportunities like, new homes and things like that, but it was challenging. So I'm glad to hear you guys are doing well. I've heard that we've built our own home. I've heard that if you can survive that as a married couple, there's a good chance that you can survive anything. So
That was it.
probably
That was it, Jordan. Yeah, honestly, and once we did that and survived it and came through counselling and everything, that's when we actually decided to have a kid, which we thought we
okay.
never would. So that you're right. When you can survive that, anyone out there, if you want to test the waters of if you can have a kid or not, try and bring up a baby house into the world and develop that first and see how you
Yeah.
guys fare. Yeah.
get to deal with all of the inspectors and engineers and the odd code things that didn't matter until they mattered, and life is on hold for a few minutes as a result. Yep. All right. So today, give us a bit of a rundown as we look at closing up this first episode, and we'll be back together here and have another episode where we dive into some more of the pain points. But tell me a little bit about where the business is today, and sort of your outlook and some of the things that are what you would say from that first 5-6 years have really been keys to success, and you're doubling down on, and some new challenges maybe that you have in front of you.
Yeah, so I think B2B partnerships are always key and always a brilliant foundation. I think trying to develop services and products which you can have as a residual and subscription based thing for your business is huge as well for the foundation and building of your business. But yeah, for us, it's interesting the time that we're in, because we're having to think now more outside of the box. Of business partnerships can't sustain you alone forever, or if they can, I guess, but you're rolling the dice a bit there when you're relying on other people to bring you business. But where we're at today, we've built a very strong foundation for ourselves, as kind of touched on with our reviews on Trustpilot now being very strong and outstanding, as having the best price in the market, a phenomenal team. The next chapter is more about how we can pivot now in a different direction away from just B2B.
Okay. And again, because we didn't really get too much into this, I'd love to have you give a bit of a pitch to our audience and our listeners for your services. Talk about who you really feel like you offer the best value and advantage to, and we'll use that as our send off.
Okay, yeah. Well, we work with anyone who sells products online in the US. So whether you're a tiny business, whether you've not even started yet, we will hold hands with you and walk you through and sort out the entire initial setup process. And we will be with you for hopefully the lifetime of your business as you see some exceptional growth. And we will basically provide a fully done for you, fully covered tax service package for all of your tax worries and needs that come up on every level, be it sales tax, state tax, franchise, federal, all of it. And we love to work with e-commerce businesses, and that is our absolute bread and butter. And we think it's the most exciting niche out there. We're very fortunate to see some just incredible people and what they're doing out there. And yeah, so for us, we offer free consultations as well. We're not hard selling people. No obligation, free sales tax and liability assessment. So feel free to pop on over and take us up on that anytime.
Awesome. And best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, just head to our website, rjmtaxexemption.com. You'll see our free booking links. You'll see our reviews there. You can check us and our team out, and we will be ready to help you.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on for this first episode with us, Reuben. Look forward to our follow-up conversation. Love sharing that entrepreneurial experience, and congratulations on all the success on the new home, on the baby, 3 months. You've got a lot going for you, and it's really wonderful to hear.
Thanks so much, Jordan. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
All right, everyone, that's it for Salve today. We will be back with Reuben, and we're going to be talking about some of those pivots that he talked about, where he has to look beyond his original marketing channels and strategies and start to dial in on digital marketing and some of those things that maybe got overlooked because there was amazing growth happening. So that'll be up next in a little while. For us, it's a couple minutes out. So we'll talk to you and see you then.